If I was working off of commission, it'd probably be a different story. Then I would work with you through your unique and maybe not so unique problems, help you come up with a plan, and then see it to completion. But that's not how this works. I work for the Internet Archive. The archive has a huge amount of physical and digital archives, some of which come by digitizing the physical archives. And I'm contacted by people, directly or indirectly, with a generalized request to help, to give advice. And I'm finding a lot of repetition in that experience. So maybe it's time to give people some generalized thoughts, in case you want to save me a little time. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Jeff Atwood, Daniel Boyd, and the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. Now, I don't want to make things weird. If you have something you want to discuss with me, or you see something that needs my attention, join the legions of people who are more than happy to contact me or ping me in the middle of some sort of social media. Usually what happens is if it's not a personal item, if it's something you read about, then you hear a story of somebody sitting on a huge pile of something and not being sure what to do next. That person has made the mistake of reaching out to social media in general and letting people know they've got a problem. They have some sort of issue, their grandfather's photographs, a pile of VHS tapes, maybe a truckload of software, or a storage unit or warehouse they've become the owners of. All of that triggers a bunch of keywords that causes people to ping me and say, Jason can help you. That's a bit of an unfunded mandate. We have no idea what that person wants at this point. That's a little different than it's your warehouse, your storage, your attic that needs help. So let's split that up. For people who are out there with a story that they have shared, I often find they come in usually somewhere between a quarter of the way to halfway into the arc. Either they know they have all this material and they've tried some things and they're starting to run out of ideas and they're sharing their frustration with the lack of options. If you have a bunch of material, a bunch of different media or items or artifacts, and it almost feels like they were sort of pre-curated, then the natural line of thinking is that there must be a place or an action that is to be taken. When I find myself flung into this situation, I immediately try to suss out whether or not somebody is doing this as a way of getting revenue, or if they are worried about the items themselves going into trash or oblivion. That's important. If we're talking about a sale, somebody acquired a bunch of things and they want to sell them, I'm just not interested. There's not much I'm going to be able to do. I'm certainly not going to raise a bunch of money and buy your thing, and I'm not going to myself try to buy something for a personal reason. I'm out of that business. I don't need hundreds of something in storage anymore. I'm pretty well set. And if you're looking for people to sell it to, all the standard rules apply. You have people who contact you who want to cherry pick. They always want to cherry pick. And occasionally you might find somebody who will flip it, who will pay $15,000 for what you paid $4,000 for. But the dreams of piecemealing it out for a year or longer to get maximum revenue of your hoard is a science and an epic story in itself. That takes a certain kind of person with a certain amount of resource, and at that point, if I show up, I'm redundant. You're already that person. You're not bothered by a pallet of material or 50 pallets of material. You're set. You know what you're going to do. By making it public, people well-meaning want to tell me about it, and I'm just not going to say hi. But good luck. If, however, you're trying to find an end to the story, your father curated a collection of floppy disks or software or machine parts, and people think you might have a home with me, then I'm more than happy to talk. I love meeting people. I love talking to them. It's absolutely fine with me. But very quickly, I usually find there's an actual real holdup. Maybe there's a thought that this could be a museum. There's the aforementioned concern that at some point it'll be sold for revenue you won't get to be a part of. Or maybe you're just paralyzed about what the next steps are. I can provide ideas, but ultimately it's the person at the place that has to make those decisions. On the other hand, there are people sitting on a very nice collection that they want to find a home for, and I offer them the Internet Archive when it makes sense. The archive isn't really the place for computer hardware. I made that decision long ago. We just don't have that kind of storage. We'll take it, but we'll do that as a matter of convenience. And when the hardware arrives, there's a very good chance it's going to be donated to yet another museum, which is a beautiful ending for that hardware, a beautiful end of the road. When people are trying to rid themselves of something, when they're doing it for the pure physical take-back of something, whether it's an attic or a storage area or clearing out a parent's house, that's a very different approach than somebody who has bought a bunch of items at auction and are trying to find a home for them. For the people who are trying to end the story, they are sitting on a bunch of items and want for the items to find a home, and they think we might be that home. Okay. First ask yourself, are these items in any way unique? For example, if they are commercially available copies of Time magazine, we're all set. National Geographic, People, TV Guide, pretty much set. Is it material that has any kind of cohesive theme? Is it part of the files of an amusement park? Is it a business that did some sort of intriguing work and is represented by the photographs and files and messages that are located in your stacks? Also, very interesting. Are they videotapes of something that doesn't exist anywhere else? Are they video or audio tapes of things that just don't exist anywhere else? Let's talk. That uniqueness is something that is very special and very likely worthy of digitization to be presented to others on its own merits. Then we have people who are just trying to get rid of stuff, trying to get rid of things that are in a basement or in a pile somewhere that have never been treated well and represent it, covered by mold and rust or papers that are clearly half burned or discarded. It gets a little tougher to justify us taking it. Somebody who is truly obsessed about the subject at hand might be able to do the piece-by-piece cleanup, but I don't think the archive is going to do it. Through all of this, I hope that there's a theme of we want to help. We want to be the end point for material that will have representation in the culture of everyone. When I picked up full collections of AOL CDs, I believe strongly that AOL CDs represent a major part of online culture. They have built into their own material, both digitized and digital, something to offer for study, for trends, for information. Devising that context is, to me, the hardest part of the whole endeavor. It's not hard to put flat things into a scanner. It's not hard to take photographs of artifacts and present them as a flip book for people to look at. It's not hard to visualize a lot of different things that could be done with a collection. Really, the hardest part is making that last bit of decision about what story and what context needs to come with these piles. For some people, the story is simply one of making a few dollars. For others, it's having spent hundreds of hours of their lives building the collection that now sits in a pile of boxes and trying to find some way for others to enjoy it. Online will be one of those ways. These threads, these pieces of history that combine and come apart and are regarded by people who weren't there, who think of it all as a foreign world out of time that they get a glimpse into, they will be regarded on their own merits. If they're lucky, they get a tour guide, they get context, they get descriptions. If they're not so lucky, they get searched. They get found based on a different conflicting or overriding term that people are looking for now, held up as an example of how it used to be, without really any story of why we even know that it used to be that way. Finding the core story of these items is the historian's job. But hand in hand with the historian is an archivist who gets contacted by the beginning of these tales, sorts them into these stacks, and helps prepare for what the future is going to find valuable. Having said all this, I welcome any connections, any pings, any communication from people who have questions. It may always be a story that I've heard before, but I assure you, I do find it fascinating every single time. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, thanks to James Bekoyanu, Mark Pilgrim, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. During the pandemic, the Internet Archive took in over 2 million individual items, books, records, magazines, films, and a whole other range of physical items as well. What we're going to do with it? Your guess is as good as mine. Some of it has already been digitized. Some of it is going to wait for a while. Some of it may never see the inside of a scanner. But we've made this choice to take this and be the last chapter. It'll be interesting to see what comes after that.